India, the most populous country in the world. A place that takes my good friend Ollie and me on a 6-week adventure. In this film, I make a phone call, Ollie buys some shoes,
I was thinking 1,000.
and we sit next to a tree. This is my Indian summer. Our journey began in Goa, India's smallest state. Our contact was a marine conservation charity called Coastal Impact, who were based in a small village called Aldona. We'd booked our Airbnb in what we thought was a nearby town, but in fact we'd be staying in Mapsa, one of the busiest cities in Goa.
Hello. So we've just arrived in Goa. We have settled into our Airbnb, which is very nice. It's very hot, very humid.
This might be a dead end as well.
Oh, this is someone's house. Maybe that's why he's annoyed at us.
He's waiting to get out.
The next day we met with Jeremy from the office. Over the next month he would be our tour guide, encyclopedia and closest friend as we navigated our way through India.
Crikey, it's the Indian Rosas.
In the evening we got a feel for the monsoon. A raging torrent which, at least for our first week, would never cease for more than an hour. The following morning we tried one of the many canteen-style restaurants. I had a masala dosa, a thin batter filled with potato curry. Later on we visited Mapsa Market, which is one of the most chaotic places in Goa. We'd come for some essential rainwear, but we left with a lot more.
So we're getting taken around Mapsa Market. As soon as we're at one store, someone takes us to another one. How much is it?
3,150.
Oh wow.
I was thinking 1,000.
The next day we hired a scooter for the month, and once we'd paid, I had to drive us back to Mapsa in what was my first ever journey on a scooter.
Let's go.
As we began our journey to work, we first had to get out of Mapsa, which meant going past the market. In our first week, we watched a presentation given by our boss, Venkatesh.
And this is the new flyover. It's got more waves than the bloody sea.
One of the most driven people I've ever met, he can also be more sarcastic than a Brit. Over the past 15 years, Coastal Impact has given over 100 presentations on marine awareness. We spent our first week improving the slides for future presentations. We modernised the design, simplified the structure, and updated the statistics. For lunch, we'd hop on the scooter to a nearby cafe. There, we'd have veg pulav, a rice dish with vegetables and lentils. And of course, chai, an Indian tea. In the evenings, we tried out all the different restaurants in Mapsa, including one with an exquisite name. At the weekend we visited Anjuna, one of Goa's party towns. We started off with dinner at a seaside restaurant, where I had a masala dish with chapatis. Then we went to a few bars, and although it's the off-season for partying, we found ourselves a club with live music. The next day we took an hour-long drive to Morjim, another beachside town. And after getting a little bit lost, we arrived in time for lunch. We spent the afternoon on the beach, among the party shacks. And sadly for us, they were closed for winter.
They've got beer in there.
week into our trip, I was getting the hang of the scooter. And as we set off for work on Monday, mercifully it wasn't raining. In our second week, we turned our attention to coral reefs. These crucial habitats are breeding grounds for the fish that supply predators and us humans. But as ocean temperatures rise, the corals start to die. So over the past few years, Coastal Impact has built 24 artificial reefs along Goa's coast. And these are made from coral fragments, which have naturally broken off existing reefs. By this point we'd met Roanna, who is one of Coastal Impact's first recruits. This year, the team have taken photos of the artificial reefs each month, and that's left us with over 1,000 photos to process. We walked the tiles into squares and traced around the corals to calculate their area and growth rate. So far, the results are looking good. Incredibly, on a few days, the rain even held off until we got home. And after the inevitable storm that followed, it was time for dinner. But as we looked for a restaurant, we got a little bit sidetracked.
This is the jacket as well.
Yeah, only blazer. Only blazer. This type
Which is an Indian fabric.
Indian Goliath and sugar.
I think this one.
Yeah.
On Friday night, we drove back to Anjuna, where we returned to the club, this time staying over for the night. After a late start, on Saturday we took an hour-long drive to Panjim, the capital of Goa. And it was to here that the Portuguese moved the capital during their 450-year rule. So having finally navigated the maze of one-way systems, we stopped for lunch at a Portuguese cafe.
I got pasta and it was the spiciest food I've had yet in India.
We spent the afternoon sightseeing before a long drive back home. On Sunday, Jeremy took us on a trip to South Goa, which is a bit less commercial than the north. There we visited a seaside restaurant where I had a Goan fish curry, a fusion of Portuguese and Indian cuisine. Later on we went to the beach before heading back to Mapsa for a little surprise.
कोई अंदर ही नहीं आया आज।
After 2 weeks living among the chaos of Mapsa, we moved to Aldona for the second half of our trip. And boy were we in for a treat. A Portuguese-style apartment complete with a living room, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms and a kitchen. And after our now much shorter journey to work, I turned my attention to Coastal Impact's social media. They've built up a good portfolio of work over the last few years, but I felt I could add to it. So I made 3 one-minute reels about the projects we've been working on. They're short and snappy enough to hold your attention and understandable to people in any field. In the evenings we tried out Aldona's fish restaurants, where one night I had squid masala.
Alright. All good?
On Friday night we once again went to Anjuna, followed by a soaking wet brunch on Saturday morning. We spent the afternoon in Povaram, where we went to the cinema before a surprisingly smooth drive home in the dark. On Sunday we drove down to Old Goa, and it was from here that the Portuguese ruled before they moved the capital to Panjim. Luckily, the rain had held off until the heavens opened for the final stretch of our journey. In Old Goa there was plenty more Portuguese architecture, which we admired while enjoying a little snack. Later on we visited Jeremy, where we parked beneath a block of flats. And after enough excitement for one day, we set off home, which meant driving on Goa's unlit highways in the middle of a storm. Mercifully, the rain eventually eased, and we made it back across the bridge to the north. We spent our final week in Goa working on plastic pollution in rivers. Coastal Impact had launched a project to install trash booms, which trap plastic waste. And it was our job to find a suitable location.
Do you know much about the boat traffic and different rivers in Goa? And do you know if there's like otters and crocodiles? Okay, and do you know if that's government or private land? Okay, is there any chance you could meet us briefly to have a look, or?
So after a bit of perseverance, we arranged a trip with a kayak instructor called Pritesh.
So we are at the River Moira to try and scout out whether it's a good river to stop plastic pollution.
We'll take one single seater and one double seater.
Okay. It looks good?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Pritesh explained that the faster current during the monsoon means plastics accumulate on the banks rather than being carried to the ocean. So trash booms installed across only half the width of the river could collect the plastics while allowing artisanal fishermen to pass freely. We also saw some fruit bats before the heavens opened once more.
This is it. Last day at the office. It's also our last day in our current office before Coastal Impact move to their new premises. So we spent the last few days packing everything up, and we're about to move the last few bits over. Quite nice that they happen to be moving out at the same time we do, but quite sad because this is the end of our time in Goa. Yeah, go on.
We spent our last day with Coastal Impact in their new office. In the afternoon we went for one last meal with the team. I had feijoada, a Portuguese bean stew served with poi bread. Then we got on the bike for one last drive home.
Oh my god.
On our last weekend in Goa, we drove back to Mapsa, where it all began just 4 weeks ago. And although this marked the end of our time in this incredible state, we still had 1 week to go in India. On Saturday night we drove down to Panjim to play football with some guys we'd met at our regular lunch cafe.
Yeah, Bobby.
On Sunday we had a chill day on foot, before making our final drive to return the scooter.
That was a bit sketchy. Yeah. Was I meant to wait? I think I was, wasn't I? Huh? I think I was meant to wait there, but anyway.
I rated it, it's red there.
Yeah. So we're at TV railway station, and we've got a ticket to Mumbai after a slight headache. So we needed our passports, so we had to go all the way back home to get them.
But making this journey 3 times in 1 week wasn't so bad after all, because it meant going on some of the best driving roads in the world.
So we're at the station to get the train to Mumbai. The train is 12 hours long, so we should get there at 10 PM time. Also, there's these food trucks. Fortunately, Top Gear is not arranging them this time.
And so we began our journey to Mumbai. A day-long trip that would take us north of Goa into Maharashtra, which is one of India's biggest states. We'd booked ourselves onto a sleeper train, complete with our own beds, air conditioning, and some incredible scenery. And as we chewed through the miles, we were indulged with continuous offerings of food. The downing of the sun signalled our approach into Mumbai. But this isn't a place where you sleep. We spent our first day in Mumbai at a national park in the north, which meant taking a rickshaw to the other side of town. And after getting stung with a special price tour guide, we made our way to the Kanheri Caves, which contain a series of Buddhist carvings dating back to the 1st century. Later we saw some rhesus macaques, which may seem all cute and fluffy, until they start trying to nick your stuff. So as I reached out for my bag, this one gave me a friendly scratch. And although it made the smallest cut possible, I knew I had to get it checked out. So we made our way back to the city to visit A&E. And after receiving impeccable service, we called it a day.
So we're at the Gateway of India. Apparently King George V had this gate built for him. It doesn't look very impressive, does it? It's this one.
We spent our next day in town, where we saw yet more incredible architecture. We also got our hands on pani puris, thin, crispy hollow dough balls filled with vegetables and spices. Later on we went to the beach for the Independence Day celebrations. For the final few days of our trip, we travelled to Navsari, a city in Gujarat. And it was from here that my mum's parents moved to the UK in the 1960s. After a short train journey, we met Vicky, my mum's cousin, who showed us round. The next day, Vicky introduced us to the rest of the family, before a homemade lunch of potato curry, chapatis and poppadoms. In the afternoon we drove down to Dandi, a coastal village. And it was here in 1930 that Gandhi and his volunteers marched peacefully on a 240-mile protest. As we drove back to Navsari, we saw preparations for the annual Ganapati festival, which celebrates the birthday of Hindu god Ganesh. Then we went to a local restaurant for one last meal with the family.
So it's 7:49. Just say goodbye to Vicky. Had an amazing day yesterday meeting the family. Yeah, quite emotional. Be a perfect way to finish our trip in India. Travel back to Mumbai now for the rest of the day and then I'll fly out in the night.
And what a trip it had been. Just 6 weeks ago we arrived on the other side of the world, faced with a chaotic city, torrential rain and just one contact. But since then we'd forged relationships at work, with my family and with the unwaveringly kind locals. We'd made a small but substantial difference to marine conservation in India. And I'd rekindled my love for driving, whether rain or shine. But my most important friendship in India was with my travel companion, Ollie. Despite pushing ourselves to the limits, we kept our heads up and ultimately leave this incredible country as more rounded human beings.